So Podcast. I am Kaitlin.
And I'm Darbi, and today's episode, we've got our friend Drew Schlup on the episode. Woo-hoo! Yeah, we're so excited about this. He is our worship pastor here at High Ridge, and we're so excited to just get to know him and let you guys get to know him.
That's right.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Drew.
Welcome.
So you were just telling us I love this, that your last name is Schlup, okay? And we were talking about what the background is of that.
So it's kind of we kind of don't know. So it was, okay, the way things go is like we're Swiss, right? And they moved over here during World War II.
Okay.
Ellis Island, they all signed in.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think his name is Charles, and he was one of the Schlups that came over. They all had kids and moved around, and then I asked my grandpa one time, just growing up, I was like, "Are we Jewish?" And he changed the subject immediately, got super uncomfortable, and I don't know why I did. I just was like, "Are we Jewish?" And then what ends up happening is,
Just want to be clear.
yeah. I don't know why. I just did. I was like, 12 or 13 at the time. And then he told my parents, he's like, we never talk about it. And I was like,
wow,
really?
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting. And then, so what ends up happening is he gets sick. He's older and he's dying. And before he died, he goes, "Hey, just so you know, we're Jewish. We just never talked about it." And he dies.
Wow.
It wasn't like his last words.
What do you do with that?
Yeah, I know. You're just like, wait, is that, like, how accurate is that?
Yeah.
How inside of his mind is he and stuff? And so, I don't know. It's kind of been this big, are we?
Am I
Are we
Jewish?
not? Like,
That's funny.
Trying to really find your identity then.
Yeah, and it's been this real long journey for me, a brave journey.
Oh, that's funny.
So let's talk about this journey, right? Okay,
All right.
So you are in Graham, Texas, leading worship. But how did we get here? How did you get here?
Right. So, fun fact: I grew up Assemblies of God, pretty strict.
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
And
Any other Jewish people going there?
no, it's frowned upon. It's
Yeah, you're the one Jew there.
But yeah. And what's funny is everybody's like, your last name's Schlup. Of course you're Jewish. And I'm like, but there's like people in Brazil with the last name.
That's true. Yeah,
I
right.
mean, and so, but anyways. Yeah, strict AG, sort of strict. Like, it was like unsaid rules, like women wore dresses and longer hair because that's their glory. And
Our glory.
yeah, that's what the Bible says, so that's what they say. And then, but what's interesting is, like, electric guitar was not allowed. We didn't have a real drum kit. We had a piano and organ. Like, music was really like kind of squashed realistically. And our youth ministry, they had like a full band, and it was more like. We did United stuff. We did Hillsong stuff. We did like any modern worship choruses and stuff like that. But our main congregation didn't. We did hymns growing up.
Wow.
Like, true story.
Yeah.
And it was like, if I played guitar, I wasn't allowed to play at the church. Or if I felt rebellious, so I got an earring when I was like 16.
Not
like,
you.
Yeah.
Rebellious? I can't see it.
I did. And they were like, you're not allowed to play on our platform anymore.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, that disqualified me. And so that's kind of like upbringing. And then but a lot of good did come out of the church. I did get, like, you saw a lot of things happen.
Foundationally,
Foundationally stuff was good. A lot of the students that were in that student ministry grew up to be pastors, or they're still in ministry of some level of serving.
That's good.
Not necessarily in the AG, but somewhere. One kind of funny. One of them is the Elevation, Ferdix Church, their youth pastor. His name's Tim Summers.
Oh, that's cool.
Really funny. I knew him when he was
Small world.
super little. So, like, there's,
Yeah, and you said Robert Madu also.
We went to college together with him.
Cool.
I know, right?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
He lived in the same dorm dorm as me. So yeah, that, and then a lot of people came out of that. But that was at Southwestern Assemblies of God University. So like I felt the call of, from an early age to go into ministry. I didn't know what that was. Like, I didn't even really start playing music until I was 13. I played drums, which I was awful, but they let me play anyways because they needed a drummer. And then I got bored, and I would walk over from my high school, because it was across a cornfield, because it was Waxahachie Small. And so walked across this field, would and then go and play piano just to learn it, just because I thought it was cool, and then learned how to play after school there, just hopped up on stage and would play. And then, felt like, hey, I want to pursue ministry. So went to Southwestern Assemblies of God University for 2 years, something like that. It didn't quite work out. I asked a lot of questions because I was like, okay, I want to be a pastor, and why do we have this, fundamental core belief that speaking in tongues is the initial evidence of the Holy Spirit, right? That was one of their core beliefs, and I was like, I want to be a pastor. Help me explain this. And they were like, because it is. And I was like, but Bible doesn't necessarily say that. What scriptures are we using to back this foundational, pillar of, the AG? And a lot of stuff happened there, and eventually was told by my English teacher, if you write a paper and I disagree with your theology, I'm failing you. And I was like, wow, cool. So I'm going to look up my options.
Out.
Yeah. And then the funny part was I, at that point in time, had a rock band. So,
Okay, wait. Pause. Schlup, we might be Jewish with a nose ring.
Yeah.
Assembly of God, cornfield, drummer, guitar,
Rock band. We're caught up.
Caught up.
Drew, who are you?
That's weird. So.
And this is what, you're 18 at this point? Or?
Yeah, I was 18.
Okay.
So,
Quite a life so far.
There wasn't much to do in Waxahachie, obviously. So you either went to a field party and got drunk, or I never did. Of course.
No, of course
not. I never did. I really never did. So.
Okay, we
let it be known.
Let it be known. My mom was a hairstylist in town, and she knew everything before I got home. Yeah. And so there's no way I'm acting out.
Yeah,
she knew which way I took home from school that day because, hey, she did everybody's hair in town.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we played music, and that's what we did. So I learned electric guitar around that time in high school, and then carried it on to college. And then, when I got there, they were like, hey, you can get a scholarship if you play for the school. And I said, great, I'll sign me up. At this time, I was cutting hair. I also cut hair, which is kind of weird. I know.
Add that to the list.
Add to the list.
Hairstylist.
I did that 2002, and I actually still have my license. It's kind of funny. I just kept
Do you cut anyone's hair now?
I cut my kids' hair and my wife and some
perks.
And I've been cutting this a little bit as it gets too long, but that doesn't count.
No, that doesn't count.
So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so anyways, back to college. So played rock band there, and then the scholarship was stupid small. It was like $200 for a semester, which gets you nowhere.
Yeah.
So we actually started booking our own shows, playing at different places and venues, and that they actually paid more. And we were like, let's just do this instead. So we did, and and everybody kind of had some money that went back into like a band fund for gas and merch and stuff, and then went to college and school. And we had a couple songs on the radio in Oklahoma, nothing really big, it's all really bad and embarrassing now when you go back and listen to it.
You gotta have that
so much.
Nothing I'm proud of. And then so long story short, then found my way at Christ for the Nations. Felt like, I went to a night of worship and felt like I was supposed to pursue worship ministry. You'd think it'd be obvious, because I could play instruments and stuff, but I was like, Lord, use me in some way. Which way are you going to do that now? And then it's like I would do all this other stuff, right? And then what's interesting is, so I'm cutting hair at the time, and this lady walks up to me and was like, hey, do you cut hair? And I was like, well, yeah. She's like, my husband needs a haircut. And she sent him to me. And so I start cutting this guy's hair. His name's Brian Ming. And he was the worship pastor of Christ for the Nations Institute. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And so we start talking, and I don't think anything of it. And he just looks at me. He's like, you're called to do more than what you're doing. And I was like, man.
That's so cool.
Right?
Yes.
And I was like, not expecting a call out. So that happened. And then what ends up happening is, all right, I was serving at a church in Red Oak at the time, Middle Lothian Red Oak, kind of Waxahachie area, but the Oaks Fellowship. And I was playing guitar there for their student ministry, for their weekend, for young adults, whatever. And just all, like even doing student home group pastoring and stuff like that. It was awesome time. And I was like, well, I'm serving at my church. I'm doing all this stuff. Just wherever the Lord has, whatever he has for me, I've always wanted to do that. And then, so I start cutting his hair every week, and then this other guy walks in, and I start cutting his hair, and he just is like, hey, you're called to do more than what you're doing. I was like, cool. He was at the time, he was over Christ for the Nations Institute. And I was like, man, you guys. And he was like, what do you mean, you guys? And I was like, so I'm cutting your hair. I'm cutting Brian Mean's hair. You guys are just harping on me to come to your school. And he was like, we never talk. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And then I start cutting this other guy's hair. And he's like, we're talking. I'm like, so what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm over the School of Worship of Christ for the Nations Institute.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what's crazy is like after that, I had another guy come in, same thing. And then I had this lady walk in, and she said, you're called to go to Christ for the Nations. You're going to go there for 2 years.
Wow, that's so cool.
You're going to graduate. And I go, all right.
If you don't get it now, like God's like, okay, I've sent you some people,
what
Drew.
the heck? And then so what ends up happening is I was like, all right, I'm going to pray about it. So,
oh my gosh, Drew!
that was my response. I was like, I'm going to pray about it. And so I'm dumb. I'm like, 25 at the time, broke and cutting hair, and, at this time, living on my own. My parents, didn't really ever see them. They were split up, and so I was like, all right. So I just was like, I'm going to apply. So I applied. And then what ended up happening, it's crazy story. So I'm filling my application. They call me like, hey, we got your application. You're all good. We'll call you back and schedule an interview. And I go, okay, let's do this. And then I go to play a show in Florida for a week, and then come back, and I had some money from it, but not a whole lot. And I didn't even really look at the check. I just put it in my wallet. And I just got a feeling, I'm like, I felt like just a prompting just to go there. And I show up, and they're like, oh, well, this is the last day that you could actually apply it for the school, that you can go through all this stuff. I'm like, well, great. And this time I'm like, I'm just going to test this out.
Yeah.
God told me I'm going to go here for 2 years. He confirmed it through a different person, 2 years, School of Worship on the second year.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, let's see how this works out. Because this is really weird that I'm here on the very last day.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, here's your paperwork, go through. And go through the line. And then I go through the line. And then I get to the place, they're like, hey, you got to pay $500 today. And I'm like, I have $20 in my bank account. Cool. And I was like, okay, God, what the heck? Like, I have no money. I'm here on the last day. And at this time, I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, because God has until I get up to the checkout to come up with this money. And so what ends up happening is I go through the line, and they're like, you're going to go here for 2 years, and then you're going to go to school of worship your third year. I'm like, God didn't say that. So let's go somewhere else. And I was like, and I just told the people, I'm like, I don't think it's right. They're like, what do you mean? Have you met with your dean yet? And I go, no. They go, well, you're supposed to have done that before you came here. So I hand the dean my transcript. He looks at it, and he just says, you're going to go here 2 years, graduate from school worship second year. And I was like, crap, I guess I'm coming here. All right, now I got to pay for this. So I go through the line. I'm the last person in line. Some girl cuts me who had totaled her car. And I was like, she's going to pay for my school, right? And then, no, it didn't happen.
Oh, I was like, wow, all right.
The check I pulled out of my wallet was exactly the amount that I needed to pay for school. And then at this time, I'm just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then she goes, yeah, God does this all the time here. Welcome to CFNI. Stamps my thing and then just goes, boom, done.
What a story.
Crazy. So after Christ for the Nations, I graduated there, did all that thing, and the Lord paid for the whole thing for the most part, and I paid for it through playing guitar. And I played for some really great people, and paid a lot of it by leading worship, and that was it. And then throughout the time, found High Ridge. Tim Ingram called me out of kind of nowhere, and he said, hey, why don't you come check us out? And I was like, all right, let's check you out. And just loved him. I loved him, loved the team, had the same friends. And that was like in 2012, and then been here ever since, and then it's just kind of worked out that way. So,
wow. So a couple things. I feel like there was some rejection that you also had to face along the same time that God's also affirming your call. And I think that's really important to hear and to know that a lot of times we, as believers, as we're walking things out, we're going to face rejection or people that disqualify you. Said that. Yeah. And that's still been a part of your story, that constant maybe disqualification by some people, but then the Lord affirming you.
Sure. And I would like to say that it stops, but I don't necessarily know that it does. I think there's always going to be that opposition, because the interesting thing is, like, people are people, and just because that they wear a pastor title doesn't make them any good at being a person. And
that's good. I mean, that's right. That's true.
And I think that's kind of one of those, super valid point. But so I think what's important is that you're just grounded and you know who you are.
Yeah.
And there's been times even at High Ridge to where callings have been questioned, and like, hey, you're not a worship leader, or you're not, and you'll never be that. And I'm like, okay, God, what do I do with that? And then you just have to go, okay, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt as well, and you need to be tougher than just somebody, and you need to know, hey, I know what I'm called to do, and how dare them come at me with that mentality and that attitude, because that's not of God. That's not.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't come at you that way, and it's. I think that's just important, and because, you always deal with that. You always, and I think that, and it's not to say that God can't change your trajectory. Like, you start out a certain way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that your trajectory changes, and I think that's okay too, because I think that, like if you think about it, Moses never really saw the promised land.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
He never got there.
Yeah.
And, and there's a list of people in the Bible who never saw their, what was
they were working
their
for.
word. Yeah. Their word was given to them. They never saw that happen. But like they're considered that great cloud of witnesses, right? And so what's interesting is, like, you can pursue something, and you always hold your calling just with an open hand, and you submit it to the Lord, and you're like, whatever you want to do with this, do it.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like, just, you're gonna be happier in the long run than that. And it's always like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's always kind of in a preparation for the next thing. I was serving at a church in Dallas. It was a small church. Like, randomly, got called to this it's called Trinity Church, Dallas, super small at the time. And now it's grown quite a bit, but was just serving there. And played piano because they needed somebody to play piano, played electric if they needed an electric. Just whatever they needed. And I just was like, dude, I just love you guys. What can I do to help out? And they're like, hey, make copies for us and set them out and then repatch the stage. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what that looks like. And so I learned there how to do audio stuff. I learned there how to do like piano really well. And a lot of that stuff came from that preparation time. Christ for the Nations, I learned how to do Pro Tools. I learned how to do, I learned how to play with click track. I learned how to play by ear. I learned how to, like before I went to school there, I played everything by ear. I just got up there and was like, all right, I feel the Lord and I'm just going to play and try to match what they're playing.
Wow.
And then that got me to like, you know,
it
was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden it's like you get caught up and then now it's like, you know, when I started working at High Ridge, they handed me a computer. We're like, we need to learn Ableton, so here you go. And then now all that stuff stacks up, and then it's like, okay, I'm the creative pastor of our Graham campus, and we do live streaming, which requires Pro Tools. We do an Easter service, which is MIDI mapping from Ableton, and you're doing lighting and all that stuff. And now we have this digital patch bay and stuff. This is Dante. And so like all this stuff like stacks up as you kind of follow the Lord. And it's like, you know, he just kind of pulls it out of you as it's needed.
So Drew, I love that your story is such a testament to just like the power of God in the details of your life. Like even as a teenager, God was working with the instruments, with the hair cutting. I mean, even that, he used that to bring the people into your life that got you where you needed to be. I mean, that was so powerful, but also such a humility in you to continue to just submit to just walking out your life and not trying to make it happen on your own, but just trusting the Lord.
That's that throughout. I didn't know this about you, Drew, and I think it's so powerful because what I'm hearing is like I see that you have been faithful all along the way in obscurity to me, because I'm like, all these people came in when you were not, like, cutting hair was not like you're called to ministry necessarily, like what you thought it would look like, but you were just being faithful with what you needed to do in that time and that season of your life. And look at, like, the Lord literally brought these people to you. Like, you didn't go seek them out. You were there just doing what you needed to do. And I know.
That's such a good word for most people, because they're not, it's never going to look like you think it's going to look.
It's not shiny, it's not bright, not everybody knows what you're doing. It's like you went and you did the work when nobody was, like, looking. You know?
And it's an overflow in your worship now. So what would be your advice to somebody who just feels like following the Lord doesn't look like they think it should, but how do they get there? How do they keep trusting?
Well, so I don't think it ever looks like you think it should. Really?
Just admitting that, step one.
I mean, step one, check. And then, you know, being faithful where you're at, doing the best you can with what you have, I think is really important. And always staying submitted to the voice of the Lord, you know, and you're trusting that. I think that there's so you hear it and then you trust it, and I think that you have to, like, that is kind of different, you know. You're like, all right, Lord said something, but it takes a little bit of a measure of faith to, you know, drive 45 minutes down the road to go, okay, why am I here? And then you find out, oh, well, this is why. And so, like, sometimes it doesn't make sense, and you know, always weigh it out and measure it, but make all that you do, just submit it to the Lord, and then see what he does with it, because it's always going to be better than what you what you kind of envisioned.
So what's the next dream then for you, the next season? What can we expect from Drew Schlup moving forward?
I have no idea. I kind of, like, my goal this year is to kind of is just to get back to the grassroots of everything, and just to really you know, I do want to write. I've written music before, and I do want to write some still.
We would love that.
We would love that.
It would be great.
Yes, we would.
I think part of it though is like I want to make sure that it's all for the right reasons too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And I never want it to be in anything. I never want it to be like, hey, I'm doing this to make me look better or to put me on the map. And you know, I think people have a tendency to do that.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I want to avoid that mentality and, you know, write songs that probably nobody will hear, but you know, the Lord, and just play it that way.
That's great.
And then whatever happens as an overflow, you know, because it's kind of how it happens anyways, and you just kind of see if it catches, and if it does, it does. If it doesn't, that's fine too. And then kids in the mix, which is really difficult because I have a 3-year-old and a 2.5-month-old
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
time is precious.
It is.
So,
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be looking forward to those songs, and
Great.
we're super thankful that you came on today to
Yeah.
share your
Yeah,
story
thanks for
because
having
we
me.
loved it. Absolutely.
All right. There it is.